my perspective changes quite a bit because you start to kind of see through the cracks a little bit once you get older based on your own experiences, you know? So you start to understand stuff that as a kid you either just don't pay attention to or don't understand. You start to understand why mom or your parents in general respond the way they do in certain situations. You start to see the flaws in your parents that you didn't notice when you were younger. It helps. It's a positive thing in that it helps you to see them more as the human beings, you know, that they are.
I remember kind of a distinct realization. It took until I was an adult for that to come, but this distinct realization that my mom is a person. You know, she's an individual. She has a lot of great characteristics. She's flawed. She does a lot of things really well. She does other things not very well. She's a person. She's a normal person with a distinct personality. But when we were growing up, you know, mom and dad were just the pinnacle. They were, everything they do is right. They do things the right way. You know, there's no other way to do it. It's whatever mom and dad says, that's how it is. And I would get in fights with friends and classmates because they said, well, no, our parents do it this way. And I said, well, that's wrong because that's not the way my parents do it.
One of the things that I've noticed as I've gotten older is how incredible she is at coordinating and organizing activities and events. She is, it seems like it's second nature to her, where I remember some of the like when we met for family home evening every week, we would go through the calendar and it was a mess. When all of us had soccer games, soccer practices at any given time, I think at like the peak of how busy it was, there were 5 different soccer teams. Like Dan and I were always on the same team, but Dan and I, Nate, Mike, Ariel, were all on a different team all at once. And somehow they still managed to come to almost all of our games. Like, granted, Dad was the coach, but growing up, and even through high school, I can't remember a game where at least one of them wasn't there. Like, there was always at least one of them at our soccer games, band concerts, whatever it was.
I do have a better perspective of time investments now that I'm a mom, and I'm a chauffeur a lot of the time, carting kids around, and it's exhausting. And sometimes it would be nice if they said thank you. And so sometimes I require that my kids say thank you. Like, I need you to acknowledge this, but mom didn't even require that of us. Just 100% selfless.
I appreciate now the true level of sacrifice that mom displayed as a parent. Now that I'm a parent, she put everything on the line for us. She did everything for us. I don't know how to describe it. I don't think you can, but everything that she did was for us kids, and she worked tirelessly for us. She made every possible sacrifice that she could to make our lives better and to make us happy. And I know that sounds like what a mom should do, but it's actually kind of unique, the level of sacrifice that she made for us. I recognize that now as a parent, because it's very easy as a parent sometimes to be selfish or to go halfway on something, but mom never did. Mom was, I think if I had to describe like one virtue for mom, it would be selfless sacrifice. That's mom to a T. And I really appreciate that now, raising kids of my own and understand and remembering how mom was always there and did things for us, and thinking that must have taken so much effort, especially with how many of us there were at the same time.
There were a lot of things mom did for us, and still does, that I took for granted a lot as a kid. Things to do with selflessness and generosity. It was like, you know, I would say more so in our adolescent years than in our little kid years, but it still happened even as younger kids. You know, we got tons of swag for Christmas and often for our birthdays, which almost, I mean, I was thrilled about it. I thought, I don't know really about mom and dad's finances, but you know, can they afford this? But I just sort of said, oh, it's cool, I get all this cool stuff.
One of the other things that I noticed later on. I didn't notice it at the time, but as I look back, I realized that she is not a huge fan of budgeting. Like, she did tell us a story of when she was a kid. This was later on when her dad, our grandpa, sat all the kids down and kind of walked them through the budget and how it scarred her for life. And so as a result, it's not like she was, throwing money all over the place. Obviously not. I mean, she did a good job living within her means, but it was always Dad who went through the budget with us. It was never her, because she didn't want to, I guess, relive, that experience, if you will. And, I can understand and respect that to a certain extent. But yeah, it was kind of funny where there would be times where Dad would be like totally, hey, it's okay, we can't afford this. And Mom would be just gung-ho and saying, hey, this is a family activity. And so let's do it. Let's make it work. Like spend like $100, taking everybody to the theater and getting treats and going out to dinner. But in the end, it all worked out.
Through my mission, and when Mom sent a tape, this is back in the day on missions when we couldn't speak on the phone or on Zoom or anything every week. And it really kind of clicked on one of the tapes that she sent when she said, we did our best. We tried hard. We made a lot of mistakes. We were not perfect as parents or as people, but we did our best. And, we really tried to do what we could for our family and for you kids. And that something just kind of went off in my brain like, wow, Mom is actually just a person. Now that I look at it as an adult, it's been wonderful to understand that she has her own personality. She has her own way of doing things and her own way of thinking, and that's different from other people. And there will be some disagreements, and it's different from what I think or would do, the way I would do things sometimes.
We definitely did argue quite a few times. I'm sure her and Ariel probably argued more than the rest of us because they spend the most time together. But that served to be a good tool for growth. But when me and Mom did argue, she was just very good to be respectful of the space that I wanted and needed.
I feel mildly bashful about just memories that I have of me acting bratty, but it also makes me more impressed that she never lost her cool, that she never snapped at me. I have a deeper appreciation for the self-control that must have required. With Mom, especially with her writing, she's a really good writer and very funny in writing a lot of the time.
Very impressed at how well she and Dad, but her, balanced all the different responsibilities and tasks that were needed of them. When we were growing up, they didn't complain already, right? Hardly ever, but we didn't bat an eye, when they had to go from, she would work part-time, and then she would come home to take care of stuff that we needed to drive us to places or pick us up or pick up stuff for us. And then she had her callings, visiting, teaching, whatever.
The sacrifice that it takes to be a good parent is tremendous. It is. And there's no way to just skate through if you really want to do what is necessary for kids to be successful. And the more effort that I have to put into my children, the more I realize Mom really, really busted her tail to help us. She really, really worked hard. The sacrifice that it takes and the effort that it takes and the focus that takes just really settles in as I become an adult and experience the same things. And so I'm so grateful for her efforts and for her just selflessness and really trying to do everything she could for her kids. And I think it really has paid off.
Becoming an adult, you realize how much harder it is to properly maintain balance with all that stuff. And it just seemed so fluid for her to balance all that and take care of all the responsibilities that she had, which is impressive because it shows a good maintenance of priorities, but also, time management and just being very aware of what needed to get done.
When I was living in Connecticut, she pretty much organized the entire trip for me to drive to Utah from Connecticut, the whole thing. And like Dad, you know, he was the one who flew up, and, you know, I took this massive Penske truck and, you know, towed one of our cars, and Dad drove the other car with us. And from start to finish, she printed out everything, made all the hotel reservations. She told us, you know, where we could eat, you know, what stops we, you know, it was incredible. And it was nice after like everything that I had to worry about getting the house, you know, ready and loading up the truck and all of that stuff, all that stress, that she could just kind of figure that piece out for me. So I would say that later on in life is when you know, as I started to organize and coordinate things, events, realized how hard it was. That's when she, you know, that piece of her, I guess, talents really came through.
Also, like at the cabin, you know, we'd go and there was just food for days, all kinds of snacks, great meals every day. And it wasn't until us guys had wives that started to say, maybe we should all take turns cooking. And it didn't really occur to me that I was like, oh, well, yeah, she's doing all that work so that we can just kind of hang out and have fun. So as an adult, I've noticed just how much she works, how much she did things for us, and just loves giving gifts, loves spending money on us to make us happy.
Her also choosing to enroll me in things so I could stay friends with Micah when I was very little. She was my first friend and a really good friend. That was a conscious choice she made so that I could be happy and keep a friendship strong. But it was an inconvenience for her, but it was something that she was willing to do.
She was the mother that we needed. I don't envy like the shopping trips that she had to go on to get groceries when we were all teenagers. I remember her saying that we went through about a gallon of milk a day. It was pretty intense. But she was one who didn't really complain. I would say, you know, if she did, I don't remember it. It didn't really have, you know, much of an impact because, yeah, that was part of her selfless nature. Was while she worries a lot about us, and that's, I guess, the mom's role. It's natural. She didn't want us, and still, you know, doesn't want us to worry too much about her. To the extent that she was feeling frustrated with something, she didn't really let it show. And that's probably a symptom of the selflessness as well as just the, you know, the patience that she had. I'd say the only other thing that comes to mind is her kindness. You know, she is a kind, loving person, and you know, is always thinking about others, as I mentioned before. But yeah, she was the mother that we needed, and you know, I'm grateful to all that she did. I think it was easy to respect and to love a person like that. And, you know, she was a tremendous example for which I'm very grateful.